Now I'm gonna explain CTR and retention because a lot of people don't really understand how it works. And on YouTube, it's a little difficult to read, so no one really knows how it kind of works out. Especially for the graph they show, it's like bouncing around, and then all of a sudden it just drops or it just rises like crazy. So here's kind of how it goes. For CTR, there's a lot of different places that people come in from for views. So there's browse features, which is the main homepage, right? And then there's suggested videos, which is when you click on a video and then underneath you scroll, that's suggested videos. There's search, which is search. There's direct, which is links outside of YouTube. There's a bunch of other ones, right? Notifications, all that. Self-explanatory. But what it kind of does is it takes the CTR from all these different like parts. So it takes from browse features, search, from suggested, from notifications, from playlist, and it combines all of them. And that's what it shows you. So, for example, and this kind of ties into impressions as well. So, for example, if I had 1,000 impressions, and say I had 100 in browse features, 500 in browse features, 500 suggested, and let's say 50 people from browse features clicked, but then only 25 from just suggested clicked. So that means my browse features plus my suggested click-through rate would be 10% plus 5% divided by 2. So my actual click-through rate would be 7.5. And this is exactly how it works. So depending on how many there are in each section, how many impressions there are, that's what the actual click-through rate is. And it kind of biases itself towards the one that has more impressions. So if your video went viral, for example, that means that you got a lot of impressions in browse features and suggested, because YouTube's like, okay, let me push this out to more people. More people are clicking it or more people are watching it, and I should probably be sending this out. But a lot of people get kind of confused on how to read the graphs. Because on YouTube it says one video might have 7.4% click-through rate, but it's like, it's like 100 views. But then another one might have like 2.3% click-through rate, but it's like 2 million views. Even Mr. Beast himself, the Beast, has a 7.4% click-through rate on one of his analytics that he showed. Now, why is that? It's because all of the people that are watching are generally from browse features or from suggested. Now, you might have some people from notifications, you might have some people from external, right? But that's where the majority of people come from. Now, let me change up what I initially said. So, let's say there's also still 1,000 impressions, but there's only 100 browse features impressions. So, only 100 people got shown it on the homepage, and 900 people got shown it through suggested videos. So, they clicked on a video and they scrolled through and they saw their thumbnail there. Now, if you had 9 people click through, and this is just horrible. If you have this, bro, you should be changing your thumbnail. You had only 1% click-through rate. So only 1% of the people that it got shown to on suggested videos click through. But then on browse features, only 100 people were shown the thumbnail, right? Only 100 impressions. But 50 of them got shown. 50 of them clicked. That's a 50% click-through rate. And that's very rare, right? Probably won't happen. But 50 of them click through. Then the click-through rate will still be closer to 1%. I would say maybe only 1.8%. And this is exactly what we had happen to us. Our video got suggested so much, so our impressions for suggested videos were so high. But then for browse features, a lot of people clicked on the video, but it just wasn't pushing it through browse features. And those are kind of the only two that you really need to focus on. So when you're reading these CTR graphs, you kind of have to look at, so if you go on YouTube Studio, especially on PC, when it shows the graph, there's this thing that underneath it says see more, like literally, like keep this in mind or do this right now. It says see more, click on see more. At the top left, it'll show content, and then it'll show traffic source. Click on traffic source. And then there it'll show you a bunch of these graphs based on CTR, retention. You can kind of adjust, play around with it. If you want to see CTR, click on like where it says CTR. And it'll show how your CTR does based on each different place that people come from, right? The viewers come from. So if you click on the CTR for browse features and suggested, it'll show like your browse features total CTR is 7.9, but for suggested videos it might be 1.9. If suggested videos got more impressions, it'll be closer to 1.9. If browse features got more suggestions, it'll be closer to 7.9. So don't be deceived by that graph that it shows you on the front, because usually that's an average. That's an average of every single thing and every single impressions come from. Someone could literally click on your channel and just see the thumbnail, and that would count as an impression. And that would really tank your click-through rate. entirely. If you want to measure progress, look at where the people are coming from, especially browse features and suggested. If those click-through rates are high, that's really good. It's going to get pushed really soon. But this is kind of where it takes us to the second point, which is retention, right? You want to know if people are actually watching your video. And to kind of do this, it's almost similar to CTR, but it's different the place it comes from. So in CTR, it tells you, okay, here's the impressions, here it goes in total, right? But you can't really measure impressions from direct, right? You can't measure impressions when someone someone sends out the link to someone else and they click on that video, go to your video. So how exactly do you measure that then? That's what retention does. And retention is even more deceiving in this way. Because your retention can be measured because it's on YouTube, right? They're watching the video on YouTube. But you can't measure impressions from if I send a link to you on Discord. I don't know if they saw it. YouTube can't check that stuff, right? That's illegal. But they can measure retention. And when it comes to retention, they take every single variable once again, right? They take all of it. But this time, direct and all the other ones are also added in it. So technically, your retention would be the average of all of those, which would be even lower than what it should actually be. Now, if you truly want to see your real retention, then again, I'd only suggest looking at browse features and suggested, because that's kind of what matters the most if you want to go viral, hit more people, if that's your goal. If you're going for search, look at search, right? How many people are clicking on this? How many people are watching it through? And that's pretty much most of what you need to know for CTR and retention, but there's one extra thing that I kind of didn't tell you, and that's viewer satisfaction. Now, how exactly do you measure viewer satisfaction? Well, you can't really, because these are the little things that pop up on YouTube. If you've seen it, like, oh, how did you think of this video? Like, how would you rate this video? It shows like these stars, so you can put like 1 star, like it was a stupid video, or like 5 stars, like this was amazing, it's beautiful. And that kind of determines how your channel does as well. And not a lot of people, know how that does, or at least how the viewers, the content creators, they don't know how this kind of relates to their channel. But generally, you should only focus on the things that matter the most, which is viewer satisfaction, how long people watch the video, and how often people click on it. And you need to know how to read these graphs properly, which is what I just told you. It's the exact same thing for retention. Click on see more, go to traffic source, and you should be able to like click on, okay, here's the thing. Just mess around with it. You'll have fun, figure out what you're doing. And that's pretty much all you need to do to figure out, okay, here's how you read CTR, here's how you read retention. You want to know you're improving, just see if it's increasing every single time, only through browse features or suggested, not that average graph there. Now, there is one extra graph that it kind of does tell you, okay, here's the retention, here's how it's doing, but this one is also kind of odd. It's a little awkward because it's the one that you see once you go to engagement in the studio. So it tells you, okay, it shows you the graph. Like it says, okay, 56% of people have viewed the video, or at least in the first 30 seconds. And it shows like a graph, like it either goes like this or it goes like this, right? Everyone's retention graph different. Best ones usually go like this, like it's just a straight line. But if you kind of want to know more about that one, that tells you how long each person watched, but it still also has that bias of, okay, here's where people clicked off, here's where people kind of, they kind of went back and they replayed it. Just shows that little spike in the graph. So that one's also difficult to read, and there's no way to actually truly read it, but there's something called relative audience retention. And also there's a see more below there as well. There's just all this stuff that no one told you about. There's a see more below it. And I'll show you this graph, so I'll show you the video, and then I'll show you the relative retention. There's this little button you click, and you click on RAR, which stands for relative audience retention, and it'll show you your video compared to how either your videos did in the past or how videos of the similar length on YouTube have done. So it won't be a graph like this, like where people started clicking off, where they spiked up. It's more like how many people watched through this without having to click off. So it'll kind of show like if this is above average or if this is below average. That kind of tells you like if 5 people skipped on 30 seconds through the video, then it's kind of like, okay, like the relative audience retention will go, because relatively it's dropped. But the graph that they show in the front, like the average, that one's absolute. And I was like, okay, a bunch of people clicked off here, spike in the graph. Relative's more like, okay, a few people clicked here, let me like round it off a bit, right? So that one's a little bit more, you kind of need to pay attention to these things. You kind of have to learn how to read these graphs to know if you're doing better or not, if your audience likes this stuff or not. Because a lot of time it can be biased, and it biases what you're trying to make as well. So make sure you know these three things and how to view them.